What is up, fellow sickos? I'm Dan Valley coming at you with my co-host Grant Hughes, and we're on to another 2025-2026 NBA season look ahead. The Memphis Grizzlies are up, which means we have the distinct pleasure of talking to Keith Parrish. He hosts the Grits and Grinds podcast. It's a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. It's its own thing. He does a fantastic job over there. He's also the host of the world-renowned Fast Break Breakfast podcast. Follow him on the socials at Fast Break Break, spelled exactly as it sounds. Keith, you're back for another year of being harassed by Grant and myself. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I am always happy to talk about the Grizzlies with you guys. It's a fun summer tradition.
Grant, we don't really care, but how are you doing?
Oh, I'm just happy to be here, Dan. Thanks for having me on the pod.
So I think we need to start here, Keith. We don't need to rehash every offseason move, but what do you just make of all they did this offseason? Because it seems like they're sending a few mixed messages with some of the moves that they've made.
It's a hard question to answer because when I talk about the Grizzlies, which I do constantly on my Grizzlies podcast, I come from it with the perspective of someone who's been a Grizzlies fan for 25 years. And also, like, at the very least, I've watched the last 5 years, and I remember the enthusiasm of the last 5 years. And when people are like, man, the Desmond Bane trade was great. We got all these picks. Like, we can go draft people. I'm like, am I supposed to be more excited than I was when the entire NBA thought we were like the one franchise you wanted to take over, when we were like number one in ESPN's future power poll, when the Grizzlies were talked about as a contender? Like, I'm supposed to be more excited now because like the Grizzlies have not won a playoff series in a while. And to come from the 56 win 21-22 season where you give the Warriors essentially all they could handle in the second round. And oh, by the way, going into that offseason, they had the same number of extra future picks as they have right now. Oh, yeah. So now people are like, oh, we got a couple of picks. I'm like, guys, we were a contender to do the on the waterfront. But it's like, now it's like, so like I'm supposed to be excited. And unfortunately, this bleeds over in my podcast performance. The listeners want from their highly localized team shows, they basically want enthusiasm. And so it's like, maybe I'm too old to do this now. Like, how am I supposed to be as excited as I was 4 years ago or 3 years ago? Where it's like, oh yeah, no one's picking the Grizzlies to be like a clear-cut playoff team. The Grizzlies title odds, which of course do not matter, the title odds are basically the same as they were in Ja Morant's second year. And it's like, what, we're 150-1 to win the title? It's like a couple of first-round picks don't make me that excited in the future because, like, I saw what we did with the last ones. And so now it's like, I don't know. But you say it's mixed. But so, like, here's the excitement level I think the front office would sell you on. Like I understand the vision to a degree. They're like, okay, we can't win the title the way we were going. Like that's their contention. I think most people agree with that. As a Grizzlies podcaster who lives in his own psychosis and the psychosis of Grizzlies fans, I'm like, all of us thought we were contenders 2 years ago. You know, like what changed? Like, okay, Ja Morant got hurt a lot. And like, is that what we're saying? But like, it wasn't that long ago where it's like, oh, Jaren and Desmond and Jaren together, or Jaren, Ja, Desmond, Bane together. That was a team that always finished second in the West. And it's like, if they just got a couple more pieces, they could contend. And so, yeah, but I think they're saying a better way to compete if this group wasn't good enough. Now you get this massive offer from the Magic. So now you just take picks and hopefully the picks work out. It's giving you a different avenue to raise your ceiling overall as a team. Do you guys talk on the podcast or do you want me to keep going? How much time do we have?
I could listen to you like this all day. I love it.
I have like 14 thoughts. The latest one that you sparked was a question of like, do you I think I would agree with you that the decision to trade Bane is at least the front office saying not good enough.
Yeah.
and maybe it's not two different things, but if you had to parse the justification for that, is it we aren't good enough because the finances are going to get too tricky with three guys making this much and Bane making this much? We need flexibility to fill out a roster, a good enough supporting cast, or is it these three guys together are not good enough on the floor for us to be you know what I mean? Like you can't really separate the finance from the on-court stuff, but like, do you have an opinion on which side of that is the bigger part of the justification for how the front office operated with Bane specifically in that trade?
I think in this league that we all enjoy and cover, finances are such a huge part of it, which feels slightly ridiculous to me as a consumer, where it's like in a world where the Celtics are tearing down, and they would have probably torn down maybe even if Jason Tatum didn't get injured. In a world where like the good teams are being like, man, we got to cut costs. I think that's a big part of it. I think you look at the Grizzlies, quote unquote, big three, when it was Ja Morant and Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. Once upon a time, then the 4 through 9 guys, it was like Dylan Brooks and Steven Adams and Kyle Anderson and Tyus Jones and D'Anthony. Like everybody was good. It was similar to what the Pacers just did this last year in the postseason, where it's like, oh, they're 1 through 9. Everybody can hoop. And we've heard a lot about the no weak link theory going on now. The Grizzlies were on that a couple years ago. They're no longer on that. So I do think, Grant, yes, there is a financial component to this, where if Desmond Bane was making $20 million per year as opposed to 35, they'd say, all right, yes, of course we can keep him. I think the difficulty, from my particular vantage point as a fan, was like, well, you still could have built around these guys. Again, I'd look at the Pacers again, where it's like if you get a Nimhard on a decent contract, and Aaron Nesmith on a decent contract, a TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin, if you still sign those supporters as opposed to missing on a couple of moves or having bunch of young guys not ready to contribute, you can still compete. So I think in the current landscape that every team seems to be dealing with, that every front office has accepted, hey, these are the rules now. We essentially have a hard cap. And I'm assuming ownership's like, great, love it. So like in this landscape, the Grizzlies are saying our best way to compete in a world where we're not going to pay luxury tax, and we're certainly never going to be like a first apron or second apron team. Our best way to compete is to cash out Desmond Bane. I mean, arguably they got a bigger return for him than they could have gotten in like a fanciful Ja Morant trade. Name a franchise that's going to trade 4 first-round picks, for Ja Morant. Like, so they said, listen, with this return, this cash out, this helps us pivot better into building a contender using a different path. And I think it's all related for every NBA team now. It's because of the finances to some degree.
The other way I kind of looked at what they did over the offseason was they decided to keep Jaren Jackson Jr. over Desmond Bane. And I wonder, when you get into the finances of it all, it becomes a tricky situation. But can you also read it as they trust that what we've seen from Jaren Jackson Jr. on offense, specifically the past couple seasons, that he can scale up to basically a number 2? Because if it's not him on this roster as your number 2 offensive guy when everyone's healthy, I don't necessarily know who it is. Or you're just banking on that to be like, I don't know, Ty Jerome at this point. So what's kind of your read on that, and how do you feel about Jaren Jackson Jr. as like your second option now moving forward?
Well, I think Jaren has always been the second option. I mean, he's always been I would consider him a more dependable go-to guy than Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane's not really a ball in his hand creator. He's to get the defense off balance, then, does the blow by for the layup, or he does the pump fake, relocate for the 3-pointer. So I've always been comfortable with Jaren. As far as like them picking Jaren over Bane, I mean, a couple things. One, I think that's a no-brainer if you have to pick one. Also, there's the financial element. Jaren's on his last deal. You couldn't trade him because the team acquiring him I think he would have to go into unrestricted free agency. So it's all like they could do the renegotiate and extend this offseason to keep him from going into unrestricted free agency. So like, they actually wouldn't have gotten, I don't think, the same return, despite Jaren being viewed as a better player league-wide, I think, by every front office. That was a part of it. But I don't think they wanted to. I think they still want to compete. They still want to put a good product on the court. They want to make the playoffs. And keeping Jaren, of course, a huge priority for that. When the Bane trade, I think, came to them, And again, I haven't seen any reporting. I don't think they were necessarily shopping Bane. I just think they became willing to listen, and the Magic are like, oh, we want to contend. We want to win a playoff series.
Yeah, I mean,
that's yeah.
Yeah.
So
it sucks that like from a fan's perspective, like, oh, we just traded Desmond Bane. I like Desmond Bane. He's a good player. And then the justification is, well, you just can't say no because there's multiple first round assets in the trade. Like you just have to do that. And that just touches on what we've been talking about, which is the financial realities creep in.
Yeah, it's so weird because like you're not wrong. If you're a basketball analyst and you're like, that's a home run trade for the Grizzlies because of all you got, you're not wrong. I hear your argument. If you're a Grizzlies fan, and you're saying that's a great return, I'm not going to argue with you. Although I do like to combine everything that happened on draft night because it's no longer they traded Bane for 4 first-round picks in a swap and Cole Anthony and KCP. It's they traded Desmond Bane for KCP, the draft rights to Cedric Coward, and now 2 first-round picks in a swap. It's still a lot. It's still a lot. And if you think that's an awesome return, I can't argue with you. My thing as a fan, it's like, well, you can't say no to that. I'm like, I can. Because I want to win a first-round playoff series.
Right.
Like the Magic wanted to win a first-round playoff series so bad, they did this trade because they've fallen short the past couple of years, and they feel like the East is open. For the Grizzlies, you're like, we haven't won a first-round playoff series in 3 years. I want that while Ja and Jaren are still in their prime. So it's tricky. And like the thing that I console myself with that I think is a very convincing argument, if the Grizzlies in the current financial situation, specifically to them and also in the league, if they're like, yeah, we want to keep Desmond Bane and we want to try to get another player in, and we still think we're going to be like, maybe if we're lucky, a 5th seed or a 6th seed in the West, we could also be a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th seed in the West and have 4 more first-round picks. Let's do that. And that's like, yeah, no, you got me. I can't argue with that logic. That logic makes a lot of sense. But it's also sad where it's like, I'm no longer going into the season being like, look out for my Grizzlies. They're awesome. I'm like, yeah, it could be a fun, plucky squad. And it's like coming from where we were. Yeah, it's hard to get excited or harder to get excited.
Yeah, you don't want to feel like you're rooting for shrewd financial decisions
right.
that look. It's like that's not as fun as rooting for Desmond Bane to go for 40.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you make of the Tuomas Iisalo, whether it's the hiring process or it seems like it was a little fait accompli like by the end of last year anyway? Do you have any expectations for what stylistically those types of changes that we're going to see? It was such a small sample size last year. We saw some, but what are you kind of expecting to see him implement into next season?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, I've decided as a podcaster, I'm going to be the person who has no opinion on the hiring process of coaches. I love it. It's like they didn't interview anyone. I'm like, I don't know. What experience do I have? I have like, I have no impressive career experience. So like, fine. All right. Hire whoever you want. I did have a little bit of fun. I think at the press conference, they were like, based on, I think Zach Kleiman said something like, like based on how well he did when he took over. I was like, I'm sorry, based on what? Like I'm not blaming him for anything that happened when he was given like the steering wheel, but like nothing went well after he took over. Like they did not finish the season on a good note. They did escape the play-in, so they avoided that awful fate. Although I guess there's an argument they would have kept a draft pick if they had done that. But like they then got swept. It was not pretty, but like they said they saw enough. And I'm like, okay, fine. Who am I to argue? What am I expecting this year? I think they're going to veer away from what they did at the beginning of last year, the highly touted circle offense thing without the ball screens, where they were like, they set the fewest screens of anybody, and it was a bunch of back cuts. And when the ball comes to your side, you run away. And, like they're moving away from that and wanting to get more, I think, with just like guard big, a lot of spam and pick and rolls, a lot of big men as screeners and finishers. And they also, I think, based on just things that have been said out loud at press conferences and the way the team played in summer league, I think they want to really make a focus on full court pressure. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Kind of Indiana Pacers slightly inspired. They did a little bit of it last year, but I think we're going to see more and more of that. And then they're going to push pace like they've always done under Taylor Jenkins. But beyond that, it is a mystery. I mean, that's like just the tiny bit of conjecture because we only have a handful of games where Iisalo was the head coach. And of course he inherited, a team that wasn't set up to do exactly what he wants to do. So when they, roll it out in preseason, we'll see. All right, what exactly is going to be different here?
Why do you think so? I mean, bottom line, the offense overall was very good last year, and a lot of that success happened with this. I was like just fascinated by how they were playing offense. Like I brought it up all the time. I'm sure Dan got tired of me talking about it, just because like you do this long enough, and anything that feels kind of like, oh, that's different, really gets your attention. Do you think the reason they're going, if they are going away from that and getting slightly more conventional, but maybe copycat in a good way, because the Pacers do have a lot of sort of similarities, do you think that's just because somebody else is in charge now, or because they decided, no, that's not a sustainable way to play, or like because the results were good? Like you know what I mean? Like I would be curious what you think their justification for kind of, I don't know, oh, that was fun for a year, maybe let's not stick with it.
I mean, I don't know all of the different fractures and fissures that happened inside the team that led to Taylor Jenkins' dismissal. Like there are, of course, lots of numbers that are really good for the Grizzlies last year. They were, they spent, I feel like maybe the majority, if not the majority, most of the, it felt like most of the season as the 2 seed in the West. They had great offensive and defensive numbers. The one thing you could poke a hole in is they were awful against good teams. They blew the doors off every awful team they played. And they finished with, I can't remember it now, but it's like they had an unbelievable winning percentage against non-playoff teams. So I think there was some thought that like, hey, we're a bit of a fraud. Like maybe they recognized that. Like I think that was a question people following the Grizzlies were asking. Like, are we actually good? But I don't really know. And also the Grizzlies, weirdly, for the entire essential stretch of Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr., when they're all healthy, they have incredible offensive numbers. But the issue was always going to be, but does this version of basketball work in the postseason? What about our half-court offensive numbers? You can't win on turnovers and offensive rebounding. Yeah. At least you couldn't until the Thunder. But it's like, like they were like, oh, like, maybe it's a regular season thing. We have to fix it for the postseason. And so every postseason for the last, or off season for the last 3-4 years, they're like, all right, how can we fix the half court offense? And they keep trying stuff. And then they tried this new thing. And again, it looked like it worked, but then maybe also beyond that, and I think maybe a big part of it I could have led with, there was some talk that Ja Morant didn't love it. Ja Morant's like, I'm not scoring 25 a game anymore. And you understand that totally. Where it's like, if you're an NBA player who's accustomed to scoring 25 a game and being talked about as an all-star and an all-NBA guy, winning's nice, but it's like you were also winning when Ja was scoring 25 a game. So who's to tell him? He's like, guys, we won all the time when I was scoring 25 a game. So like, what's the deal? So I think there was some that maybe Ja Morant didn't love the way they were playing. And so then they switched over to get Ja the ball more. It did happen to directly coincide with the team not playing very well. I don't know if it's a one-to-one correlation. It's funny too, because like Grizzlies fans are like, oh yeah, we're gonna have Iisalo's gonna give us this new system where we're like Ja and Edey are real involved, and you're like, yeah, you mean the one where we lost games and Jaren Jackson Jr. didn't play very well? Like, again, I'm not assigning blame. I always try to escape myself from the blame. Listen, I'm just pointing things out. I'm making observations.
That's we just all. Like to ask questions.
I'm just asking questions. Just asking questions. Is it really that effective? Yeah.
I've seen everything they've done, like from the coach to the transactions, framed as sort of a hedge on the uncertainty of Ja Morant. But do you view it more as just like, no, they've kind of doubled down on Ja Morant, especially when you look at the coaching situation, if he wasn't happy with the way the offense was being run. But then you get back to that, and it's, well, how much say did Taylor Jenkins have in that to begin with? I find the whole Ja Morant discourse just absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the insight. I can't tell you exactly what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of stuff last year where they replaced all of Taylor Jenkins' assistant coaches, and it was like kind of pitched as, they work together to do that, but it's like, come on now. You replaced this coaches. You got to tell him to get rid of all his assistants. And then, how much is it playing to Ja's strengths and how much just like the offseason now, where like you said, it's like maybe they're hedging some stuff. I mean, like the Bane trade where you're like, listen, we weren't going to make it to the summit of the mountain going this path. Let's take a couple steps back and pick a new path. We think that's a better way to get where we want to go to win a championship. And I don't know how to combine all the moves to make them make total sense. It's like a lot of it is like the Ty Jerome signing, where you're like, the Ty Jerome signing in a vacuum seems incredible. Getting him for the room exception, like that's incredible value. And I totally understand if that's the best value you could get for the room exception. I can't imagine getting a better player for that money. Well, it makes sense, but also you have Scottie Pippen Jr. and Ja Morant. So it's like, well, how are they all going to work together? And like, maybe it's just, again, the best player available situation, and we'll figure it out as we go. So I'm not really sure, or I'm not sure if I answered your question even. Like, it does feel like they're hedging their bets somewhat, while also saying like, this is Ja Morant's team. Let's just focus more on just getting Ja the ball, and let's see how far he can take us.
I think last year when we talked, you said something that I thought about several times all year, which was that Ja Morant, in terms of popularity in Memphis, is about as high. He's just like he was the guy, full stop. Like, and just in terms of like the number of jerseys that kids are wearing or whatever, like he's just at the apex of that. Can you evaluate how he's viewed, if it's different at all now a year later? Because like that was coming off a 9-game season. Now he played 50 last year with varying levels of success. There, we've talked about a little bit of the, some of the changes that the offense kind of visited on him. Do you think he still occupies that same space? Because it sounds like we're asking about, where does he sit in the franchise's eyes? Like, are they built around him in terms of just like Q score or clout or whatever? Is everybody still all in on this is the guy we are building around? Just we're not even going to have that conversation. That's
so hard to answer because
speak for all Memphis fans, please.
Because it's just like I live in my bubble and there's a lot of people living in their bubble. I know, of course, his Q score it's huge. Like the sneakers, like they're huge. He's a huge Nike signature athlete and he has worldwide appeal, and he still has one of the top selling jerseys in the world. And, he is easily the most popular and well-known Grizzlies player. So then if I'm trying to figure out how much of the fan base is still like, I can't imagine moving on from him. He is the team. That's hard to say. I do think, and this comes back to how basketball is an entertainment and a money driven thing, even though Nico Harrison didn't understand that. Like you're not going to trade Ja Morant because he's too important to getting your team on television, to getting people to share social media clips, to get people to buy tickets. Like, so I think the city's still behind them, but again, I don't have any personal interaction. No one said to me, no stranger on the street. It happens every now and then. I live in Nashville, and I'm wearing a Grizzly shirt, and they come up and we talk or whatever. No one's been like, hey, man, when are we trading Ja Morant? No one says that. No, everyone's like, yeah. Actually, the most common question from a stranger? When's Zach Edey going to learn how to catch a pass? Like, I just met you, sir. Look at you. Like, yeah.
What a segue from you. Yeah. Wanted to ask you about Zach Edey. We want to know your year one impressions of him for sure, but also how worried are we about like the ankle injury and then how integrating him into what should be kind of a new system when he just might not even be ready to start the season?
Man, they told me he didn't miss a game at Purdue. Something like he was like this is like the sturdiest guy. No, but poor guy had ankle surgery. He's going to miss the start of the year. To answer your question, what are my takeaways from year one? They were mixed. I mean, he obviously has an impact when he's out there. There are there's stats you can pull where you could be like, he was one of the most, impactful guys on the whole team in a positive way. He's a great screener, great rebounder. I was on the one hand a little disappointed that he was so raw offensively. I kind of thought all that college schooling he would have learned a couple post moves or something, but it really was
you don't like those hook shots.
It's just like he's the I want an ambi-turner from Zoolander, and he not so much yet. Just like only one hand, only one shoulder turn. And again, the lack of touch, the lack of catching passes, where it's like
Do you need that? Do you need to do that?
So this is the argument, because again, a lot of people, like he was first team all rookie. And like I said, the impact metrics were very, very, very good. Even Iisalo defended him a couple times where he's like, when the coach pulls out the net rating, he's like, we're plus 20 points per 100 possessions with Zach on the court. You're like, all right, fair enough. It's like, sir, I thought that was a podcaster trick. So like a lot of promising stuff. And again, he's a rookie. He was a rookie thrust into a starting role on a playoff team, which like you assume you're going to struggle. So I think year 2, the thought was, all right, man, if he can take that step forward, it'd be great. But now this big injury setback, it has concerns. And like Grant said, and like I've joked about, like, can you teach hands? Like, I don't like his hands. And maybe I'm too hung up on this, but it's like, man, he's like Bismack Biyombo out there. Like, he just doesn't know the pass is coming. And it's like, he doesn't get it. And so, I hope he can make a big step forward there. And there should be a bigger role for him when he's healthy. Like, I think everything Iisalo's doing, like, they want to get him involved in the game. And if he could play like 26, 27 minutes a game, he could put up some big numbers. Of course, he's going to inhale a ton of rebounds and block some shots. So, like, beyond that, I'm not sure exactly what his ceiling, is, or even who the player comp is. You're saying this is, hopefully year 2, year 3, he could turn into that guy.
What about Jaylen Wells? Kind of similar. I mean, very dissimilar in the sense of like pre-draft billing relative to what he ended up producing in the role he filled. From afar, it's pretty easy to fall into the idea of like he is a very limited role player that was awesome for a rookie at the limited role he was asked to play. And if that's it, great. I don't see a whole lot more. Is that misguided? Is there more that you imagine he'll be able to do beyond the sort of 3-and-D, mostly defense by the end of the year? The 3-ball kind of tailed off, but like, and I guess the second part of that question is, are the Grizzlies built like for him to do more than he did last year?
Yeah, I mean, Jaylen Wells was a delight. I mean, whatever.
Should have been the rookie of the year.
I think strong argument that he could have been the rookie of the year. I think the tail off that the Grizzlies had after the All-Star break, after the trade deadline, I think it hurt him a lot. It was a hard rookie of the year campaign for him because he didn't put together a bunch of highlight package type things. It was just like, this guy's starting for a very good team and he's guarding the best player for the opponent every night. Like, that's unbelievably more valuable than, like, I don't know, Khalil Ware coming out and having a few big games, or like Stephen Castle putting up numbers on a horrible Spurs team. It's like Jaylen Wells is playing important minutes every single night. But like, yeah, Jaylen was awesome. He's just unbelievably good defender. And it's funny too, like, I don't follow college basketball, and so when they drafted Jaylen Wells, I'm watching all these scouting videos, and it mainly was just talking about his shooting. Like, none of them were like, this guy's a lockdown defender. But he was so good on defense last year. It was a delight. Like you said, his shooting did tail off. I think the big question for him, beyond whether maybe he could handle a little bit more of an offensive load, is just, can he be a 37% three-point shooter, 38% three-point shooter, or is he a 35% three-point shooter? And I think that's a big difference. But I do think the offense is set up, not necessarily for him to take a step forward, but it is set up where you can imagine the vision in a post-Desmond Bane world where, like, Ja and Jaren and Zach are your scorers. We surround them with Jaylen Wells and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That's a good basketball team. Like, you got, again, I'm assuming Kentavious Caldwell-Pope bounces back to a couple years ago for him, but it's like, that's a good basketball team. You got defenders, you got floor spacers, and Jaylen Wells can be that. So I'm like, while I hear that and I understand the whole thing about, like, is it a limited ceiling for Jaylen Wells? I mean, maybe, but also, like, why can't he get better? We see NBA players all the time. And this guy, an unheralded second-round draft pick who stepped in and was an immediate contributor, started 70-something games. Yeah, I think he could. Why can't he get a lot better?
Yeah. Well, and then it's a question of, like, how greedy are we going to get? If the ceiling is last year, it was starter on a really good team. Like, what else do you want from? Yeah. I hear you.
I do have a thing about Jaylen Wells. This is said a lot. Like, like Zach Kleiman's like, we didn't intend to get younger last year, but Jaylen Wells came out in training camp and won the starting job. No, he didn't. Marcus Smart started until he was hurt. We're retconning these things. Marcus Smart played 7-8 games, got hurt. Jaylen Wells, you could argue Jaylen Wells didn't give it back. Like, he seized it once he got it in the regular season. Yeah, no, Jaylen Wells was great. And he's like there are reasons to be excited. Going back to my like dystopian opening to the show, like I mean Zach Edey year 2, and then Jaylen Wells year 2. Whatever Cedric Coward has to bring, like those are really good players. Scottie Pippen Jr. was unbelievable last year. Ty Jerome coming in, like could be a very, very good team with a lot of exciting young pieces complementing John Jaren.
One of the moves they made that I think sent mixed messages was consolidating those 2 first-round picks into Cedric Cowherd. We didn't see him in Summer League because of that left shoulder injury. Do you have any early impressions of him, or what are your expectations even for how are they going to bring this guy along on a team that still feels like it has these immediate expectations, but is also clearly they're trying to straddle 2 timelines at this point, like so many other teams. It's become a cliche to say, but that's what it feels like they're doing.
Yeah, it's funny because I do think they are sort of straddling 2 timelines, and as NBA fans, when we lose one of the franchise's best players, which is what Desmond Bane was, you actually, part of you, I think, turns into well, let's see what we got. Like, I don't think anyone would be angry if Cedric Coward started game 1 over, like, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Like, part of it's the mystery, too, where it's like, oh, all right, you guys obviously loved this guy. You traded 2 of the picks you got for Desmond Bane, plus extra, I think it was
second-round pick, right?
Yeah, like a second-round pick and the first rounder to move up 5 spots. Like, that's a lot. And
the Pelicans don't think so.
Yeah, no, the Pelicans are like, that's a great price. The excitement, I think, on him, it's just like, oh, okay, well, let's see this guy. Like this wing with size. I mean, he is, in the few interviews he's done, he seems delightful. Like he's saying a lot of fun things, but like the big problem being, no one's seen him play basketball, and he only played a handful of games at the D1 level, and so it's like, I don't know. So I do think, like, I imagine people want to see him play and play a lot, but then when you look at the depth chart, it's a mystery because they do have this glut of wings, Jaylen Wells leading them, and then there's still Vince Williams Jr. on the roster and Gigi Jackson on the roster, and John Conchar is still here. And oh, by the way, they signed Cam Spencer to like a 3-year deal. So it's like, yeah, I'm not sure exactly who's going to earn those minutes in training camp and who we see at the start of the year.
I feel like if we flash forward to 2038, you'll still be saying John Conchar is still here.
Still here.
It's never going to go. I'm really upset I can't ask you about whether or not Zaire Williams is going to happen this year. That's going to be for a different podcast.
What was my answer last year?
I think it was like, it's the politest way you could have said that he will never happen. Like that was basically
that was 2 years ago. Yeah, I remember that.
I think it was on your show. I said I planted my flag and I said he's an NBA player, and I think maybe you guys laughed. And I said he's going to get a second contract, and then I said he's going to get a second contract, right? He got a second contract. I was right.
Nailed
Although
it.
I don't think it's officially done yet. They're still doing funny business, but he's agreed to have a second contract with the Nets.
So since I can't ask you about him, Gigi Jackson is next on the list of it. Is Player X going to happen? Kind of has had injury, to understate it, has had injury issues. Hasn't really gotten a chance to, I don't know, to really show what he's capable of. What are your expectations for him? Do you see him filling a significant role on this team if he's healthy, and what does that look like?
My expectations are 0. But that's only because I've been injured. I've been hurt myself. Mm-hmm. My heart was hurt. He's a strange player in the sense that a guy with unbelievable physical gifts who was his top high school recruit, reclassified, and then was bad in college. And there's a lot of stuff said about him about being immature. And then he falls into the second round and the Grizzlies get him. And then in the Grizzlies 2 years ago, when Ja started the year suspended and then got hurt and they tanked out, Gigi played, was he was the youngest player in the NBA, and he put together these 30-point games, and you're taking it with a grain of salt because you're like, this is March basketball, April basketball. None of this is real. They just have like a 40-point game, and you're like, if this guy was back in the draft a couple years ago, you're like, legitimately, he'd be a top 10 guy. Like everyone, like I was asking actual well-known draft experts. I'm like, just for my Grizzlies listeners, like where would Gigi Jackson go? And like he was a top 10 type guy. And I think they expected a lot from him last year, and he was hurt. And then when he came back and played, he was catastrophic. I mean, and I don't know. I feel like we see this more and more, or maybe I just observe it more and more the older I get. We see players who just are nicked up and they never totally get back, and they never catch up. They have sort of lost seasons where you're like, what happened to that guy? And it's like, oh yeah, apparently he was hurt and then couldn't ever get totally in shape and just struggled, lost his confidence maybe. So Gigi was an unbelievably bad defender last year. He got demoted essentially. Like they went on a road trip and told him to stay home, which is like, that's like high school basketball stuff. I mean, like,
yeah,
they legit, they sent him to the G League to play with the Hustle, and it wasn't like an injury rehab thing. It was just like, sorry, man. So I don't know. So because of that, it's like, all right, I've seen what he can do. And he had, we've seen him have some really strong summer leagues where you're like, this guy can dunk on anybody off the dribble. And you see him flash these things where you're like, with that size and the handle and the way he can go by guys, there's a role for him in the NBA. And then we saw him do it in actual games where you get so excited, but then he was totally unavailable to help in any meaningful way last year. So the way I've coped with that, I have zero expectations, but please surprise me, Gigi Jackson. Please fight your way back into the rotation.
Dan, if you close your eyes, do you just hear me talking about Jonathan Kuminga when Keith is describing Gigi Jackson?
Keith seems way lower on Gigi Jackson than you are on Jonathan Kuminga.
I've said some irrational things.
Keith, what do you sort of make of just the whole Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen Jr., Vince Williams is there. They signed Cam Spencer, like you said, who I kind of like, but just viewed in the context of just all this like perimeter jumble in that secondary part of the rotation. How do you see that shaking out? Are there one or two names that are you just like putting in Sharpie as, right, these guys are important, everybody else is going to kind of have to compete for minutes?
Yeah, I think of the names you mentioned, Scottie Pippen Jr. and Ty Jerome are going to play. I mean, I think Scottie Pippen Jr. really seized hold of an important role last year, and he's not letting that go. An incredibly good on-ball defender, pretty good at getting by his guy too. He's been shooting the basketball very well. Like he's been making 3-pointers. So like Scottie Pippen Jr. is quite good as like a bench guard. I don't, and also Ty Jerome, like you didn't sign him to not play him. So those guys are for real. I think the rest of the guys, it's been their policy, I think, to just try to, a lot of teams do this. It's like you look at the Thunder's draft record and you're like, all right, they actually have a lot of misses, but like when an Aaron Wiggins pops, it's all worth it, And so like that's the same thing. They just want some of these guys to win the spot. Vince, much like Gigi, I think they were depending a lot on Vince Williams Jr. last year. It was the exact same story. Vince Williams Jr. has said he never got better than 80% with his ankle last year. So 2 years ago, Vince was the guy like Jaylen Wells this past season. 2 years ago, it was Vince Williams Jr., who was guarding Kevin Durant one night and Luka Doncic the next night and Steph Curry the next night. And like he was taking the number one assignment and also was making those connective plays. I fell in love with him a couple of years ago because of like offensive rebounding and blocking shots. And like he was a good passer. And you're like, this is the perfect
starter. We did like 8 minutes on him last year, I believe.
Yeah. It made all of us look stupid because he disappointed us last year. So like, maybe there's still a role for him, but I don't know. I think he's one of the more likely guys to even get traded because, like, like Conchar is still there. You got Conchar, you got Gigi Jackson, you got Vince Williams Jr., Cam Spencer, and then, of course, Cedric Coward. And then you got KCP and Jaylen Wells. They're all fighting for minutes. Jaylen Wells is going to play. I'm pretty sure KCP is going to play. The rest of those guys are competing for maybe one spot. Like Santi Aldama is going to play at the big position. On the wing, they're all fighting to try to get in there, and I don't know what's going to happen.
You ready to hit the cookie cutter / lightning round portion here?
We'll take your silence as a yes.
To start there.
Oh, was that question for me?
Directed at everybody.
Yes.
Even before I asked the question, I was like, should I address a person before I put this?
Just throw it out there.
Yeah. Just kind of top down. What do you view as this team's biggest strength for this coming season? Like, what's the thing you're most confident they'll be very good at, and will be kind of like you'll associate this characteristic with the Grizzlies when you're talking about them in a positive way?
That's interesting. As a team-wide attribute, I'm not sure, but I would guess they're going to be a good defensive team again. They felt for whatever reason they were terrible at defense at the end of the year last year. And that has been an aberration. And maybe with a coaching change, it'll be different. Like Taylor Jenkins always had him as a very good defensive team. But I do think with Jaren anchoring everything, and they've proven even with Ja Morant playing, they can be a very good defense. I think with Jaren, with Zach Edey, with Jaylen Wells, with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, with Vince Williams Jr., with Scottie Pippen Jr., they're going to be good at defense. And I
Jock
think that's
Landale in the house.
Jock Landale in the house. That's right. Maybe starts opening night. Who knows? Yeah, I think this team will still be a quite good defensive team, and they're going to be able to depend on that.
And then kind of flip that around. Maybe it's not a weakness per se, but what do you think as you're looking at the roster or at a potential deficiency? Like, what does this team need that it doesn't have right now?
Is three-point shooting important?
In the modern NBA, I don't think so.
I think the Thunder definitively proved you don't have to make three-pointers to win a title. The Grizzlies got rid of Desmond Bane, of course, and Luke Kennard. I think they got rid of like 4 of their 5 best percentage-wise three-point shooters from last year. And, oh, by the way, they weren't great at shooting three-pointers last year. So, yeah, that's going to be like, hey, Santi, we need this to be consistently good. Jaren, can you get the numbers high again? Jaylen, can you maybe shoot 39%, not 35%? Hey, KCP, could you not shoot 31% from the three-point line? I think they need some three-point shooting. That's going to be a big thing. Also, they need front court health. Like, with Edey missing for who knows how long. I mean, maybe he's back by Christmas, maybe Thanksgiving. I don't know, but I think he's going to miss the first month of the season is the expectation. Jaren hopefully is available at the beginning of the year. Brandon Clark can't stay healthy as it is, and even when he's healthy, he barely plays 20 minutes a game. So, like, they need bigs. Like, Jock Landale might play way more minutes than I actually was so excited. Everyone's like, oh, this Jay Huff trade. Why would you trade Jay Huff and bring in Jock Landale? I'm like, man, like, we need a guy just to grab rebounds and screen, and that's not Jay Huff. And, like, we just need someone to open the season doing that. So, like, yeah, I was less – that's like I was, like, more happy about the Jay Huff trade where I'm like, what, is Jay Huff going to win us a playoff game? No. Go get your second-round picks, Grizzlies. That's fine. We'll find another Jay Huff. It'll be okay.
You've illustrated the difference between national coverage and local knowledge, because I think the very much the national position was like, well, Jay Huff can shoot threes and he blocks shots sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, well, why doesn't he make $50 million a year? Like,
right.
I know Dan and I were definitely guilty of that. It's like, oh, look at this guy. He can
Who
do
needs
everything
Miles
you need.
Turner when you have
Well,
Jay
there's
Huff?
some-
Right. Same thing.
There's some things where it's like, there's every NBA team, when a guy's going into that last year of the deal, you have to ask yourself, are we winning a playoff series this year because of this guy? If not, and he's not coming back, let's trade him. And I think Jay Huff was clearly, we're like, all right, like, I'm going to be upset about trading Desmond Bane for picks, because Desmond Bane is the difference between, 40 wins and 50 wins and playoff series wins and such. But, like, the Jay Huff, man, if there's one thing Zach Kleiman's great at, it's finding Jay Huffs.
Yeah. Well,
It's finding
that's the thing.
Scottie Pippen Jr.'s. It's finding John Conchars. Like, this Grizzlies front office can do this all day of the week. If you want to give me a pick for Jay Huff in a year that we're 150-1 to win the title, give me a second-round pick. I'll do it again.
Right.
So,
That's
like,
the thing. The world in which you could get an asset for Jay Huff has existed for a year. Like,
Right.
That's before that.
You
it was
signed
not
him.
possible.
You like I talked about him at Summer League last year, where I was like, I wouldn't mind getting Jay Huff on a two-way. They went and did it, and then turned that into a second-round pick. And I think there's a second one, like a soft one. I'm like, that's good work, man. If you sign a guy to a two-way and trade him a year later, that's good stuff. I'm all on board with that one.
What's something about this team, good, bad, storyline, whatever, that's flying under the radar?
I think, in a general sense, because of how the year ended and because of the Desmond Bane trade, there's just a weird perception that the Grizzlies aren't, like, quote-unquote good.
Well, the
Like,
Jay Huff trade.
The Jay Huff trade? They're like,
used to be good.
they're tearing it down to the studs. They sent out Jay Huff. Like, this team in the East would compete for home court advantage. Like, I feel that. And there's talk about, like, oh, the Hawks are incredible. I'm like, they're not better than the Grizzlies, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's this, it's so weird how Western Conference teams have, like, a different set of circumstances to compete, like, obviously to compete under, but also just to be talked about. Like, if the Grizzlies were in the East, they probably don't trade Desmond Bane, because they're like, oh, we could we're really good. Like we're gonna be one of the best teams in the East. And so it is weird where like when I get it. You trade your third best player for picks, and Ja Morant has had trouble playing more than 50, 55 games. Like I understand that, but still it's like things could break right. They could win 50 games again. Like they could be in a playoff series, a competitive playoff series. You get the right breaks, maybe they could beat, a Timberwolves or a Rockets in the first round. They're not going to be picked to preseason, but they have enough good players and a track record of winning. Jaren and Ja win basketball games. So I think in a general sense, it's like that part feels like it's under the radar, where it's like, they're not terrible. They're pretty good. And maybe it's me joking too much about the things I'm disappointed about, but it's still like, end of the day, pretty solid basketball squad.
Well, I mean, to that point, just looking at the depth chart, it's 10 deep before you get to Coward or Spencer. And you could, I mean, that's assuming you get something from Jackson, something from Clark. I mean, it's really looking good, down through Jerome, Aldama, Pippen off the bench. Yeah. Do you see a way for Coward and Spencer to really, probably more so Coward, but who knows, to kind of chip into that doesn't involve injury? And then just to throw multi-part questions at you, from that whole group, who do you like to close games? If you can just pretend there's not like a matchup dependent kind of dimension to that thing.
Yeah, no, that part's fun. Wait, what was the first part of the question before the?
Just like, is Coward or Spencer going to be able to play? Just because there's 10 good NBA players here.
I would assume with the draft pick investment, if Coward shows enough of what they saw in him to take him or to trade up for him with that pricey package, I can imagine him being that one wing on the bench. I'm guessing the bench, like if we're assuming the starter is when Zach Edey's back healthy, if your bench is, you got a couple of smallish guards and Ty Jerome and Scottie Pippen Jr., and then your bigs are set with Brandon Clark and Santi Aldama. Like those are four very good bench players. So like that's a big upgrade, I think, on what they've been having. And then there's like that one spot, maybe the three, and it's at Vince Williams Jr. Is it Cedric Coward? I think there's a good chance Cedric Coward breaks through there if Vince Williams Jr. isn't back up. I don't know if Cam Spencer will break through. I mean, he might end up being one of the more consistent 3-point shooters, and so because of that reason, he gets on the court. As far as the closing, that's tough. I've always been, for years, just a Brandon Clark believer. If Brandon Clark's healthy, the Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. front court has always been tremendous for the Grizzlies. And then you pair that with Ja Morant, probably Jaylen Wells, and then, man, I'm going to have to see what everybody looks like. Yeah. Is KCP, does he have something left in the tank? Is Cedric Coward any good? Is Vince Williams Jr. back to where we want him? Like, is Scottie Pippen Jr. or Ty Jerome, are they undeniable, where you can't keep them off the court? Like Scottie Pippen Jr., the lone bright spot in the humiliating sweep to the Thunder. So, like, yeah, it's hard to say right now, like, who's going to be, for me, that fifth guy to go alongside. I mean, maybe Zach Edey has a huge year. And I'm like, sorry, Brandon Clark. Let's put Aldama at the 3. I mean, Santi Aldama's a good player who we haven't really talked about at all. Mm-hmm. Like, Santi has, some defensive lapses that make you a little frustrated, and he's not the most consistent shooter, but like he's a skilled near 7-footer who is, I think, an important part of what they do this year as well. So yeah, they do have a lot of options, and I haven't nailed down who I think should close yet.
Is there a weirdo lineup you want to see Iisalo try this year?
Yes. Let's see. Let's get the one.
Can you tell us it?
It has to have Vince Williams Jr. because he's my guy. I need to be all back in on Vince Williams Jr. Let's go Ty Jerome, Jaylen Wells, Vince Williams Jr., Jaren, and Brandon. No, wait. Let's make it weirder.
You got to get Gigi in there.
Ty Jerome, Vince Williams Jr., Santi Aldama, Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark.
Oh,
that's my 1 through 5.
I'd want to go like the opposite direction. Like, let's get Edey with a bunch of smalls. I'd have Vince Williams Jr.
They will
in there.
Do that.
Cam Spencer.
Cam Spencer will play the 4. You're gonna get a Ja, Scottie Pippen, Ty Jerome, Cam Spencer, Edey. Yeah, that's.
I'd rather get Ja out of there and give me like Jaylen Wells or somebody in there, but Vince Williams and Cam Spencer need to be in there with Edey. Yeah. That's what I've decided.
Yep.
Keith, before we force you to make some predictions, is there anything else we haven't touched upon with this team that you think needs to be discussed?
No.
That's fun.
It's a really efficient 50
I
minutes, guys. We covered it all.
I feel like we hit it. I do feel like maybe, I don't know. I talked a lot about how Scottie Pippen Jr. is quite good basketball player. Santi Aldama, good chance for him to break out. I think we did it.
How excited are you for the potential City Edition jerseys this year? I mean,
I am excited because I think their normal jerseys are kind of boring, but they've been crushing it with the City Edition jerseys. I believe it's going to, the rumor is, I think it's going to be a white City Edition jersey. It's going to be a remix of the Stacks jerseys that they did a couple years ago that were awesome, and I think it's going to look amazing. I mean, they're wearing the black throwbacks from the first year they came to Memphis. So like, I love those. So I'm excited. Like all the throwback jerseys, the City jerseys are going to be awesome. Now I just need a redesign for the basic home and away, which I don't love that much.
Given the boost to the win total that those jerseys will provide, where do you see this team finishing record-wise? 48 wins last year, by the way. People like you, to your point, 48
Almost
wins.
50.
They
were in over.
Win team.
I lost money.
Well, we
How
have
good
a
is this
big
team?
Keith.
What are they going to do?
I'm I think is it 6 or 7?
Oh,
grand?
that's right.
Yeah.
This is your team, Dan. I mean, this is your
Oh.
Bizarro team. Dan's
I have
never
not
right about the Grizzlies.
I have not successfully picked the Grizzlies over under in I think it's 6 or 7 years. It's at least 6. It might be 7 years.
You know what that tells me? You took them to take the under 6 of the last 7 years because they've hit the over. They've hit the over in every one of Ja Morant's season except for the one where he played 9 games.
Yes, and it was the one that I went. I remember that year saying, "I'm going to go over because I'm always fucking wrong," and then that's what happened.
Yeah. So I don't even know what the number is. I think this is like a 45 win team. I think 45 wins seems totally reasonable. So yeah, I would peg him at 45. I mean, last year I think I took him at like 46. So maybe I should turn it back more, but I don't know. Maybe I've softened. So
I think you need to go the other way. I think you should probably go for 50 and just.
I've been trying.
That way,
listen,
you're happy either way.
I've been trying to work up this take that the Desmond Bane trade is the new Rudy Gay trade. Oh. Back in the day, they traded Rudy Gay for Tayshaun Prince and Ed Davis, and everyone was like, "Why are we trading Rudy Gay? He's our whatever best player." But the shots redistributed among Mike Conley and Marc Gasol, and the team got really, really good after that. They had the best run in franchise history after that. I do not necessarily think that was because of Rudy Gay, but that's the generally accepted narrative. Getting rid of Rudy Gay actually gave Mark the ball more, gave Mike the ball more. They all filled their roles much better, became a more cohesive team. What if getting rid of Desmond Bane, giving those shots to Edey and Jaren and Ja, letting Cedric Coward and Jaylen Wells and KCP be the role players? What if that is actually addition by subtraction? I don't believe it, but I'm trying to get there.
You could sell it. I think just workshop it a little more. Just be a little, more
you
disingenuous.
Point to those
would be
picks,
good.
turning into other players that are better than Desmond.
I'm going to go to cleaning the glass. I'm going to find some lineup data.
There's a way.
And
I
can do it. I can do it.
Keith, before we let you go, are you able just to tell our audience where they can find you and all the fantastic work that you put out?
Yeah, general NBA fans, just make sure you listen to the Fast Break Breakfast podcast. And if you want to know anything about the Grizzlies, go subscribe to the Grits and Grinds Grizzlies podcast on YouTube.
And after you do that, rate, review, subscribe for our stuff too, because we also make podcasts. Not a lot of NBA podcasts out there, so we like to just let people know. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Dan. Looking forward to Dan being wrong about the Grizzlies for a 14th straight year. We'll do it again next year. Thanks a lot. Shouts Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.